Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm going to take about 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners to help provide you with great Ironman mindset ideas to help you scale your business to become a better leader and push yourself out of your comfort zone. We have now doubled our audience. We really hope you enjoy these shows and really encourage you to like and share with friends, family members, and your network. Based on my book, The Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs, I want to try and pull out one insight you could take back from your business on every single show. And ultimately, my goal is to try and make you less mistakes than I did and make your company more profitable. I'm also super excited to share that finally we've gone live with our digital courses on the Wilson 360 website, wilson-360.com. Cheers, everyone. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. Really excited today to be joined by good friend Rick Grimes. Rick, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
I know we last met when you were one of our successful speakers at TLR in Denver this year, so it's good to see you on the show and be able to spread your word a little bit wider than the audience we had in Denver.
Yeah, it's great. That was a fun session and really lively and active, and just enjoyed getting to meet everyone there.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. Well, don't mind tell the audience your background, please.
So I've got about 30 years experience in marketing, operations, and data leadership roles. I don't know, probably about 2 years ago now, this thing called ChatGPT had come out, and I started tinkering with it, and I had what I call that everyone usually has at one point in time. I had my AI aha moment and realized that this was going to change a lot about how we work. It was going to affect our personal lives and whatnot. And so for the last 2 years, I've been going deep down the rabbit hole to learn as much as I can. I've been teaching a lot of people around how to use it and how to, my heart is for this to feel really accessible to people. And so just been doing a lot of work in that over the last few years, doing projects, training, talking, evangelizing and whatnot.
Cool. No, I love that. I know it's definitely on, most people's mind, and they're either embracing it or they're scared of it because it potentially they see it as almost as a threat, either of existence or maybe to their job. So yes. How are you going about, you've learned a lot. You probably come across, even at the TLR show, there was a lot of people who'd never really been exposed to it, but you did a great job and just almost good, just getting back to the basics and explaining it to people just to make it more accessible. Yeah.
And I think, the way I started my talk there, if you recall, was, I talked about the fact that there are a lot of people who are, it's just scary to them. It's artificial intelligence. It sounds really big. People use big terms like prompt engineering and things like that. And I said, let's make sure we're very clear on what the requirements are for someone to use this AI. They're called large language models like ChatGPT or whatnot. I said, one, you had to have instructed anyone to do anything ever. And two, you had to have typed text into a box in a computer. If you've done those two things, you can use this AI. So obviously, pretty much everybody's done that. It's very accessible. Yeah. I think people think about they hear the word prompt and instructions and whatnot. They think computer code. It's not. Most of the prompts I do are 1 or 2 sentences, a set of instructions. Write me a paragraph about things like that. Very simple. And then I layer complexity in as it needed, but I don't start there. I always start with the simplest thing and say, okay, how far along can it get me before then I need to kind of get a little more sophisticated? And 70-80% of the time, the first shot is good enough. And I can take what I got from there and use it to add on to what I'm doing or whatnot. And so I think a lot of the threat from people is that somehow this stuff's going to fall from the sky and replace their jobs. What I've seen in most people is it actually does 2 very cool things. One, it amplifies what they're already able to do, and they can now do it better. And 2, if you think about the thing that in your job you like, some of the things you like the least doing, oftentimes the AI can help to alleviate some of that, or in some cases completely eliminate that particular task, which then gives you, frankly, just more energy in your work because the energy draining tasks are reduced. And it just gives you more time to focus on your personal superpowers, whatever that is. So when I think about it just making it accessible to people, just helping them to understand what their outcome is and what's possible with it, and how simple it can be to achieve pretty interesting results is kind of the path I've taken. And it is fun to see kind of the light bulb moments in people where they're like, I had no idea I could do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. I mean, I've been exploring it, and I probably know enough to be dangerous. But I suppose for maybe there are some people in the audience that haven't really dove into it too deeply. Just I suppose maybe just explain. I suppose maybe the top 5 or so different platforms that maybe they could start exploring. Any sort of guidelines there?
Yeah, and so there's basically 3. In fact, I was training a woman yesterday, and I gave her this kind of direction. The best well-known one is ChatGPT. It's kind of the equivalent of like Google in search. If you're going to tell somebody, hey, you got to search, you're going to say Google, unless you work at Microsoft and you tell them to use Bing. So that's the one that is kind of the general purpose. People use that for a lot of things. You could just use ChatGPT and never have anything else, and you would be completely fine. The one that's emerged since ChatGPT came out is called Claude.ai. So Claude is very similar to ChatGPT. In fact, Claude was founded by some former OpenAI employees who are the ones who built ChatGPT. So it's very similar, but it's a better writer from my perspective. When you're looking to create content, Claude is a really good writer. So if I'm going to be like, hey, I need a marketing blurb on this, or I'm writing a study guide for something, I'll use Claude for that. The third is called Perplexity.ai. Perplexity is a great research tool. It's really good about giving you its sources. You can then drill into the sources, but it also will summarize things. It acts like Claude or ChatGPT, but it's much better at sourcing and aggregating. And they even just the other day added shopping in. So now you can like research things and then just go and buy it from their page. Once again, ChatGPT, general purpose. Claude is good for a lot of things. It can do coding just like ChatGPT can, but I particularly favor it for writing. And then Perplexity as a kind of research, learning about something, hey, I don't know anything about this, like help me understand.
Okay. Is there any situation where you may end up using 2 or 3 of those? Maybe you start in one area, maybe that research, and then it might then transfer into something like Claude where you actually want to do a report on what you've researched?
Yeah, I've definitely done that a bunch. One example, a really simple example, is you may write something in Claude and take it over to ChatGPT and say, give me 5 ways I can potentially make this better, or vice versa. And then when it gives you the 5 ways, you may say, okay, I like the second one and the 5th one. Give me a paragraph to expand on kind of your point, and then tell me where I should put it in the document. And it'll do that. And then you may say, okay, now go ahead and rewrite the whole document for me, incorporating this in. So then you have one thing you can copy and paste out. So using each one as an editor can be very valuable. I'm right now doing a project for basically an irrigation contractor licensing board. They want a study guide for their test. So I'm building the study guide in Claude. What I'm going to do in the end is I'm going to take the study guide and I'm going to take the quiz questions and I'm going to take it over to ChatGPT and I'm going to tell it to basically use the study guide to answer the test questions, to make sure that all of the information that's needed to answer the questions in the test are actually included in the study guide. So that's another way where I built in one and I'm going to test in the other one. You don't need to do that. Like I said, you could live just in one and be happy for the rest of your life, but it's definitely like a bit of an advanced way to maximize the benefit you can get from these types of large language models.
One of the big bandwagons I jump on is, we have all this data that's being supplied to us these days. In the landscape industry, you've got GPS from our trucks, you've got now robotic mowers, you've got labor stuff coming out of our ERP systems, you've maybe got some data coming out of irrigation controllers, and it's just nobody's really connecting the dots just to sort of produce some type of, I don't know if the right term is like predictive analysis, or just trying to find future trends or trying to become more efficient. Talk to me about how potentially AI could be used to help with this connecting the dots, or just trying to become a better, more efficient company.
One thing that people have concerns about is, what is the AI doing with the information that I put in it? Different AI models have different approaches to that. So for instance, Claude in their policies say, we don't use your data to train our model. ChatGPT, for instance, is the opposite, where they default to that. But what you can do is go into ChatGPT and change a setting so that it doesn't train using your data. I always want to make sure that people are very careful about, hey, if you're putting proprietary company data in, make sure you know what the policy is and what your settings are set at, right? And it's pretty easy to do. You can even do a simple search. And then there's also like industry data versus company data. So You can put industry data in there because it's readily available to people. There's not risk. Odds are that the model already has some version of that industry data trained into it anyways, given how much data it is trained on. Once you're kind of comfortable with the data handling policies, then at that point, one of the things you can do, and I've done this before, is I will upload different data sources instructed on what they are, what the various columns mean. If there are columns in one that are named different than something else, but they kind of mean the same thing, clarify those types of things, and then ask it to find trends and patterns or anything else. The important thing about this is you really have to check the large language models work. We grew up in an age where as long as the program didn't have bugs in it, it worked each time exactly like you needed it to, and it was very consistent. The reason these large language models are different is they're predictive, and what they're basically doing at any time is predicting what the next word should be. And then once it gets that next word, it predicts the next word based on the previous words. So there's times where its prediction gets a little bit off. It can be it can be a little off from what you want. So that's why you always have to check it, the concept of human in the loop. So if it's going to Robert, if it's going to take your data and produce an analysis, you want to also instruct it and tell me how you got there. Tell me what data you used to get to it. So you need to ask it some questions around that to make sure that you're comfortable with how it works. So that's like the bespoke kind of ad hoc approach that you can use and do some experimenting there, which is very simple. The systemic approach is there are pretty much every platform company in the world is incorporating AI into their stuff in some way, shape, or form. The problem is, in most cases, that's within their own data and their own walled garden. The interoperability between, you may have 4 different data sources. If you really want to systematize that, there are people out there doing really good work to bring all that data together and create more of a system-wise approach. But right now, granted, I'm not as close to what the state of the art is technology-wise from a data standpoint in the landscaping industry. But at a macro basis, you usually right now would need to hire someone to really create the system you want to bring all that together. Someday in the future, it'll get a lot simpler. But for now, that middle ground where it can very easily happen, we're not there yet. So it's either within the platforms you already use, do they have some AI going that can help you get smarter? Can you do some tinkering on your own? Or, folks like me can dig in on that. And then there's almost like a systems component in the middle that you can do. It's just obviously it's more time and money.
Yes, you can either outsource that person who specializes in that analysis of that data, or you could even bring in, I've heard more and more companies bringing on some type of a CTO onto their team to help not only manage the systems, but again, pull some of that data together.
But an important point is we're not yet to the place where you can just be okay, I'm going to upload my 4 spreadsheets and say, go figure everything out, and it just goes and does, right? We're not, you've heard me talk about my continuum before. We're not at that Jetsons, if you remember the cartoon as a kid. We're not at that Jetsons level yet in terms of data. Because the thing I joke is they're called large language models. That's what LLM means. And so it's still figuring out the number side of it from my perspective, based on my experience. Yeah, there's people doing great work and it's getting there, but it's not quite to the place yet where you can just, here's my spreadsheets, go figure out everything I need to know, do all the predictive everything, and then you can be highly confident that this is exactly what I need.
It sounds like one of the key pieces to using AI is the prompts. How do you know where to even start with some of the prompts? Because obviously if you're doing some research, I think maybe not everybody knows this, but you can keep on diving deeper into that same message. But what's the best way to sort of determine that the prompts, the right prompts to use to ultimately get where you want to go?
To some extent, you can get there through experimentation, but usually you need to get some training. I do a lot of training of people once they kind of get the tips and tricks and the ways to interact with it. They get it like that, right? Okay. But they're not intuitive. Some of them, right? Like the idea of if it's not giving you what you want, asking it. I'll literally do this sometimes. It won't be doing what I want. I'll go over and start a new chat because the large language models don't have any, for the most part, they don't have any context across. If I start one thread and if I start another, they don't have context across that. So I'll be struggling over here and I'll go over into a new thread and I'll say, hey, I'm trying to prompt a large language model to do this, this, and this, but I'm having trouble getting it. How should I prompt the large language model to get it to do what I want? And it'll give me text, and then I'll bring that text back over here.
Okay.
And use it there and try it out. And so the point on it is there are some tips and tricks like that are not intuitive. You either need to do your research and go down the rabbit hole on YouTube and other things, or just find a class from somebody you like who you can hire somebody to train you once you kind of get it. it's like everybody I've trained afterwards. It's not because I'm saying I'm the greatest trainer in the world. It's just once people get it and they're able to think that way, they're then able for themselves to go, oh, okay, I can now try this. What if I do this? Will this work? But it's definitely non-intuitive. But the beautiful thing about it, Robert, is for most things, you can just give it clear instructions and be specific. Just like, I used the intern example before. It's like you have an intern and you're basically just training that intern to, like if you had an intern in your business, you wouldn't just give them 3 words and like walk away. Right? You're like, okay, here's what I need you to do. Here's what a good output looks like. Here's some other context you need to have. And if you just kind of prompt the large language model, and basically even the word prompt is a little like scary. It's literally typing instruction, like basic instructions into a box. You can then get pretty quickly to a place where you're like, okay, I understand how to, and then you'll see, oh, it's being too general there. So you can go back and be like, you're being too general. I need you to be more specific in these areas. So there's that iterative approach where you can see the output and then you can message it again and say, you're not quite there. I need you to do this. Or, hey, that's really good. I want you to keep that part, but this other part needs to change in this way. And that kind of iterative approach can get people pretty far. And then, getting some training or doing some research to understand other advanced prompting techniques is what can help them to kind of get to that next level that you're talking about.
I think a couple of weeks ago, I was using it for planning a trip to Costa Rica. And came up with a sort of a general itinerary, but then as I kept prompting it more and more, it got really specific and gave me names of places and phone numbers and times of day, and it was unbelievable, just information. And it literally saved me hours and hours of research.
That's a great example to what we were talking about, like in terms of the level of detail, right? You can say, we're going to Costa Rica, it's this many people, here's their age, here's the things we like, here's the things we don't like, here's the time of year we're considering. So give me an itinerary to maximize whatever you're trying to do on your trip, just like you're saying. And then it'll lay out, and you're right, it'll give you restaurants to go to, it'll give you activities to do. You can say and include links. One of the important things is ChatGPT can hit the internet and provide information. Claude, I'm not quite sure why, but Claude can't hit the internet. So it's a little harder on some of the link stuff. You can definitely go down the path and have it give you, to your point, you can create a whole itinerary, even down specific to the likes and dislikes of the people who are going on the trip.
Oh, for sure. And that could even get down to, you just mentioned a minute ago, the age or the demographics of the people going, because it's going to give you an option of either doing zip lining if you're probably younger, or maybe you're doing some hiking or walking trails if you're a little bit older. So getting all those different demographics is key.
Even things like, and one of the people is mobility challenged. Like that alone can be something that can help people to, because I imagine there's not a ton of resources that can account for some people's, some of the things they deal with physically. So you're getting at a point. It's not just something for business. It's something that can help you in your personal life as well.
Oh, for sure.
Get more efficient.
Now we're running out of time here, Rick. What any other things that the audience should be thinking about when they start thinking about AI and applying it to either business or personal? Then what would be a good sort of first steps on maybe just diving into a little bit deeper and be becoming less threatened by it?
Yeah, I think it's a matter, like this is one of these things, like you can't break it, right? So you can get in there and just try stuff. Pick something you're doing. You're trying to write something. Give it some instructions and see if it can write it in a way. And then, or the other cool thing is if you have something that you really like, as an example, you can always just paste that in and say, hey, I'm writing meeting minutes for this meeting. I'm going to paste in the transcript of the meeting, but also down below, I'm going to give you an example of one I recently did that I like. So kind of try to match that. You can do those kind of instructions. The message I usually have for people who run businesses, which I'm guessing a lot of the people who might be on here do, is, and I mentioned this when I talked in Denver a while back, is whether your employees work for you for another month or 15 years, in their next job interview, they're going to get asked, how are you using AI to make yourself more efficient, to expand your capabilities, whatever the wording is. And if you don't help them down the path now, you're kind of, to be blunt, you're kind of doing them a bit of a disservice later when the time comes for them to get asked those questions, because now they've been in your business and haven't been getting the development and training they need. So I think it's just really important for business leaders to encourage the experimentation, to encourage their people, not in a threatening way, but get them some training, get people to help, whatever, however you want to do it. You may have an expert in-house already and you don't even know it. If you ask around, who's already using this stuff well? I guarantee you there's somebody in the business who's like, oh yeah, I use it for this and that and whatever, and you may or may not even know. So once you create that space for it to be safe to do it, it can really expand, what your business can do. So you're not only making your business better, but you're also doing a service to the people who work for you to make sure that their capabilities are keeping up with where the world's headed. So that's always the message I deliver to business leaders, is to make sure that we're being kind and considerate of the people who work for us to make sure they're equipped for kind of where the future's going.
Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they have more questions about AI? Maybe they need some special training, guidance from you. So what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Email is very easy. If you know my name, you know my email. It's just rickgrimes@rickgrimes.com. So that's RICKGRIMES at RICKGRIMES.com.
Awesome. Oh, nice and easy. Rick, been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for your guidance on AI. Look forward to hearing from you more. We'll get you back on the AI podcast here again soon. But have a great weekend, Rick.
Thanks for having me, and you have a great weekend. All your listeners have a great weekend as well.
Thanks for tuning in to the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm Robert Clinky-Beard, and I hope today's insights inspire you to push yourself beyond your limits, lead with purpose, and scale your business to new heights. Don't forget to check out our new digital online courses and training programs on the Wilson 360 website, and join the Boss Business Management Software community to optimize your business like never before. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe on YouTube, share it with your network. Let's grow, let's transform the industry together. Until next time, stay inspired and keep striving for greatness. Cheers, everyone.